Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to another episode of Being Present with Leonard. This is episode 4, and I hope you've been following episodes 1, 2, and 3. In episode 1, I spoke about presence. In episode 2, I can't remember what I spoke about. Episode 3, I spoke about the 4 obstacles to being present, which really is step 2 of this teaching. So most of you would now know that this teaching has 2 steps to it. Step 1 is learning the art of being present. And it's important to recognize how simple it is to be present, how easy it is to come out of the past and future world of the mind and be present with something that is here in the moment with you. If you can see it in this moment, you can be present with it. If you can hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, feel it, you can be present with it. It's like coming back to your senses and relating moment to moment to what is here through your senses. And you will be amazed by what you will experience if you're able to accomplish that, to come back to your senses and really, really open up into presence with what is actually here in the moment with you. So we're going to begin with a short presence meditation. So close your eyes. This will be very short, but very significant. So close your eyes. And all you need to know right now is that your body is breathing. Your body breathes in, your body breathes out. And if you go too far into the mind, too far into the dream, the past, the future, if you go too far, your body in a very subtle way feels abandoned by you. But when you're present, aware of the body breathing, moment to moment, breathing in, breathing out, the body is actually very comforted by that. Oh, good, he's back, she's back, I'm not alone. And something very healing begins to occur within your body as you become present. When you're truly present, your mind is silent, no thoughts, no past, no future, just this moment. And you feel very, very present with what is here in the moment with you. You can feel it. It's almost palpable. At the deeper levels of presence, you really start to experience oneness with everything around you, everything else that is in the present moment with you. There's a oneness that arises. You can't explain it with your mind, but it's what happens as the illusion of separation dissolves. You open into oneness. At the deepest levels of presence, you might even open into the living presence of God in all things present. You might even open up into heaven on earth. So it's immensely valuable to learn the art of being present. That's step 1 of this teaching. Step 2 of this teaching is a little more challenging. It's very easy to be present, very simple, but it's not so easy to remain present as you live your life, as you go to work, as you participate in your relationships with your family, your friends, your children, your parents, whoever. It's so easy to be caught back into the dream, back into the mind, back into the past and future, with everything that goes along with that within the dream. So step 2 is all about bringing conscious awareness to the dream. How do you get pulled back into the dream? How does that happen? Who are you when you're caught in the dream? Who have you become when you're caught in the dream? What are the repressed feelings buried within you? All of these contribute to this sense of, well, who have I become? Living in a world of separation, lifetime after lifetime, including this one, who have I become? I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. You've got the repressed feelings to deal with. We have to liberate the repressed feelings, and we have to bring conscious awareness to all the ways that we're pulled out of presence and all the ways we lose ourselves in other people. So today, in today's episode, I'm going to be speaking about the first aspect of step 2, which is the resistance of the ego. Why does the ego resist us being present? And how can we overcome its resistance? Well, let me begin This is very important, and this is not usually covered in other teachings or religions or anything like that. Um, there's a few things I want to say generally about the ego. First of all, when I speak of the ego, I'm not speaking of the ego that Jung and Freud were speaking of. It might be the same ego, but I'm speaking about it in a completely different way. I'm speaking about the ego in the context of awakening. Why does the ego resist presence? How can we overcome its resistance? So that's the first thing I would like to say. The second thing is that the ego, you could really regard the ego as like an entity, but it doesn't come from outside of you. So you don't need to be afraid of it or defend yourself against it. But it is an entity. It has its own personality almost. It's like a sub-personality, but it's very real. You can dialogue directly with the ego. And it arises from within you, and it arises within you. It opens up within you at a very early age. So here are some questions we need to have answered regarding the ego if we're to become liberated and become awakened. Liberated from the dream, awakened into oneness, truth, love, presence, and God. So who is the ego? What is the ego? I'm going to tell you a few things that are quite surprising, because most people on a spiritual path, particularly those on a non-dual path, very, very convinced that with awakening, with enlightenment, we get rid of the ego. And that is extremely unhelpful and extremely untrue, no matter what anyone has said. You can't get rid of the ego for the simple reason that the one trying to get rid of the ego is the ego itself. It just reinforces the strength and power of the ego by trying to get rid of it, or even having that thought, I'm going to get rid of my ego. I'll become enlightened. I'll awaken. My ego will be gone. No, it won't. And not only that, when you read that in some book or you hear some teacher telling you that with enlightenment, the ego is gone, it's destroyed, annihilated, eliminated, guess who's reading that along with you? Guess who's hearing those words from the teacher along with you? It's the ego. And do you think the ego is going to stand by and allow itself to be annihilated, to be gotten rid of, to disappear, to dissolve completely? It will not happen. It's impossible. You cannot defeat the ego. You cannot get rid of the ego. Buddha could not defeat the ego. Jesus could not defeat the ego. That's not what their teaching is about. So let's go a little deeper into what is the ego and what is its role in your life. Its role in your life is as your friend and your protector. You will discover as you proceed with this teaching that the ego actually loves you and it's deeply committed to protecting you. But its way of protecting you is somewhat outdated and unhelpful. But even when I say that, I'm not in any way intending to insult the ego. Ego, you've done a great job. You've done the very best you can, but now you need a little re-educating, let's put it that way. So the ego is your friend and protector. It knows all the limiting beliefs that formed within your mind as a child. It knows all the repressed feelings. It knows all the judgments you have of yourself and others. It knows all these things about you because it's a part of you. And then its first job upon your behalf, when it pops into your life at a very young age, maybe 3 years old, maybe younger, maybe 1 year old, maybe 4 years old, the ego will open up, pop into your life because you're having difficulty dealing with all the difficult feelings that you're having to experience as a child, living in a world where no one is present, with all the limiting beliefs, I'm not loved, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, I'm not worthy, I don't count, I don't belong, I don't know where I fit in. The ego is aware of all these limiting beliefs and associated painful and difficult feelings. It's aware of the anger that's been arising within you in your early childhood. It's aware of all the hurt and the pain. It's aware of all the unfulfilled needs that exist within you. It's aware of the fear that you have. Fear of being alone, fear of dying, fear of not surviving, fear of the unknown. The ego is aware of all of this, and its first job upon your behalf, when you're very, very young, is to help you repress these difficult feelings like anger, hurt, sadness, pain, unfulfilled need, all those needs that are not being met. All of this is the ego helps you to repress so you don't have to feel it. It's trying to help you. It's trying to help you not feel these painful feelings by repressing them. Now, at the time that the ego and you made that decision together to repress the feelings, it was the right choice. It was the right decision. You were too young to deal with all these difficult feelings that arose as a result of you living in a world where no one is present. So the first job, as I've said, is the ego will help you to repress the feelings, and then it will take over the rest of your life, developing strategies and different ways for you to protect you and get you what it thinks and believes you need. For example, if you have a limiting belief that you're not loved and you feel that at a deeply unconscious level, the ego will embark upon a journey trying to get the love that it thinks you need. It'll do all sorts, develop all sorts of strategies, hoping to make you better so that you'll be loved, or hoping to improve you so that you'll be good enough, or hoping for you to develop in a way that will prove to others how good you are, that you're worthy, you're lovable, you're worthy of love, acceptance, compassion, and all of that. The only problem is the ego does a very good job. It does the best that it possibly can, but nothing works. Because even if 100 people are loving you in this moment or very impressed by how wealthy you are or how successful you are, you don't feel it because at a deeper and unconscious level, you have these limiting beliefs that prevail. I'm not loved. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. Those deeper unconscious limiting beliefs will prevail over any positive thinking you make or any influence that these things have over you. So it's good to know that the ego is doing its best to help you get the love it thinks you need, to prove that you're good enough, to feel included, to feel wanted, to not feel like an outsider. The only problem is because nothing works, the ego starts to get angry with you and it starts beating you up. It starts being very hard on you. Be better, do this, do that. It starts judging you, pushing you. And the ego needs to realize that that is an incredibly unhelpful and ineffective motivational strategy to make you better. We need to send the ego to a school for motivational strategies where it can develop a much more effective strategy to motivate you to be all that you are and all that you can be and all that you want to be. But it's totally the opposite to beating you up, being hard on you, judging you as a motivational strategy. The ego needs to relax. The ego needs to compliment you, congratulate when you the smallest accomplishments. I hope your egos are listening right now, because what I'm saying, everybody's ego, listen, what I'm saying will change things very quickly for you if you stop being so hard on him or her, if you stop beating them up, if you stop pushing so hard. Relax, and gradually and gently, ego, let them be more and more present, because then you will be astonished by the changes. But before we get to those changes, we have to understand, why does the ego resist presence? Well, first of all, if you are very, very present and your mind is silent, what's that like for the ego? The ego does not like it. It feels like it's either disappearing or it's dying. And it doesn't like that. And it will pull out its bag of tricks to pull you out of the present moment. And it is so skilled at that. And we're all like little children. We fall for the ego's tricks. I'm not saying there's anything sinister about the ego's tricks. It's just very clever at pulling you out of presence. So you have to be just as clever at witnessing what it's up to and how it's trying to pull you out of the present moment. So that's the first element of resistance. It's not going to allow itself to disappear or be gotten rid of. No way. So the second element or aspect of resistance of the ego is that when you're truly present and your mind is silent, where's the ego? It's not there. Let's say it's on hold, like a telephone goes on hold. It's not there in the moment of presence, and so it's not in control. And the ego has to be in control so it can protect you. If it's not in control, what might happen to you? It doesn't know. It's got to run your show, be sure about the future. It knows the past. It's sure about what it wants in the future, which is nothing but a projection of the past forward into the future. It knows all of that, and it cannot allow itself to lose control over you because anything could happen to you. But eventually you persuade the ego, hey, it's okay, you're not going to die, you're not going to disappear, and nothing is going to happen to me when I'm present. I don't need your protection. It'll take some time, but the ego will start to relax and start to allow you to be more and more present, particularly as you come into right relationship with the ego. You're going to have to learn not to try and get rid of the ego or judge the ego or blame the ego. You're going to have to learn, if you want to awaken, you're going to have to learn how to come into right relationship with the ego. Now, what is right relationship with the ego? It means that you are present, and from presence, you share love. You bring the energy of love to the ego, compassion, acceptance, allowing. There's absolutely nothing in you trying to get rid of the ego or judge the ego. You're just very, very keenly interested in how it functions and how it pulls you out of presence. You're not actually going to change anything other than bring it all to conscious awareness. And I'll speak about that more as we proceed. So the ego is not going to allow itself not to be in control because it has to protect you. But when you convince the ego, you persuade the ego, or it is persuaded by the level of presence you awaken to and the level of love you engage with it, the ego might get to a point when it will relax. It will realize it's not going to die or disappear. You have to let the ego know that you don't intend that. You don't want that. You're not trying to get rid of the ego. That's essential. And then you can demonstrate to the ego it doesn't need to protect you when you're present because there's nothing happening. You're just here in the moment with whatever's here. There's nothing to protect you against. Whatever the ego has been protecting you against is from the dream. But here's the catch. The ego has to keep you in the dream to justify its role in your life as protector, as friend and protector. If there's nothing to protect you against, then the ego's out of a job, and the ego won't accept that either. So the ego will say, no, if you're present, what do? I'm out of a job. I've been protecting you all your life. That's my job. So you have to offer the ego a new job. And the way you do that is very simple. And we cover all of this in our longer retreats. We go so deeply into it in a very experiential way. But you say to the ego, don't you realize that I am an eternal being when I'm present? I am an eternal being. There's no past or future. I don't even know my name without you, ego. I cannot participate in the world of time without you. I don't know what time is. I'm just here. So I need you, ego, as my friend and partner in the world of time. You are so good at functioning in the world of time. You can really assist me with appointments, with remembering things, with planning, all of these wonderful things you can do for me because I am an eternal being. My mind is silent, but we can work together and have a beautiful, joyful, playful life together, full of love, full of life, full of energy. You and me together, ego. I will support you. I will be grateful to you. I will love you. I will send you love. And I'm not trying to get rid of you, but I am saying to you now, ego, it's probably a good time to begin to relax and allow me to be more and more present. I'm becoming more and more aware of your bag of tricks, ego. It's not going to be that easy to run them by me anymore. I am awake now, ego. I am your friend, and I'm watching you always. That's kind of the right relationship with ego. It's very friendly. It's very allowing. You could even say to the ego, or I would say to your ego, ego, if you want to hold him or her in separation for all eternity, to hold him or her in the dream for all eternity, you are allowed and you'll never be punished. It's up to you, ego. But is that what you really want? Is that what you really want for him or her? To hold them in unconsciousness, in separation, in illusion, in a dream, and a painful dream at that. How long do you want to hold them in that dream? Forever? No. Or how about a year? No. Okay, how about right now? Let's begin right now, relaxing and allowing presence to open up. Slowly, slowly, the ego will relax. It will take time, and you have to pass the ego's test, which I'm not going to share right now, but the ego has a test given to it by God to test, should the ego release you or not. Now, I'll tell you one final secret, and this really is a mystical and profound secret. A secret of the ages, a secret of eternity. See, the trouble is, if I build something up too much, like the secret of eternity, I actually forget what it was going to be, because I'm speaking from presence. If I disconnect even for a moment from presence or from the flow, that is arising within me, which is where I speak from. I speak from the flow. I'm showing you with my hands. I'm not speaking from within my mind. I don't even know what comes next when I speak. I don't know what my next sentence is, but it did just come back to me, the secret. The ego has been waiting from the very beginning of time for the true master to arise from within. The ego is actually programmed and directed by God to surrender and release only the true master arising from within. Not the master outside of you, not the guru outside of you, but the true master arising from within. And who is that true master? I am. And you can answer it exactly the same way. Who is the true master? I am. It's the I am that you are. It's the I am presence. And the ego is programmed to surrender to the true master arising from within. But it's also been given a test to test, are you really the true master? And the test is the test of judgment. The ego knows that the true master is without judgment. So all it has to do is bring up an energy or a thought around judgment. If it can catch you into that, you believe in that judgment that's arising, that thought, that feeling that's arising. If you believe in it, if you identify with it, then you just failed the ego's test. You're not the true master. But if you simply say, judging, you don't reject it, you don't believe in it, you're kind of neutral. The ego will keep testing you, but if you keep passing that test in the way that I'm describing, the ego will drop all resistance to presence. It will know the true master is here. Now you enter a different level, a different dimension of awakening. You know, there's so much about the ego. I'm currently writing a book about the ego and the resistance of the ego, how to overcome its resistance. Who and what is the ego? How does it function? Why does it function? What is its role in your life? How does it pull you out of presence? And how do you overcome its resistance? So it's probably going to take me about 6 months to write that book, but it will be out one of these days. Anyway, I hope you're all learning something from what I'm sharing about the ego. What I'm sharing is very, very different to what you might otherwise hear. So it's going to take some time for you to really, really get what I'm saying. Or it might not. You might get it instantly. I certainly hope so. Now, I don't want this episode to go on for too long. I've been sent a couple of questions from our viewing audience in being present with Leonard. And I do appreciate the questions. So I'm going to answer these two questions, and then we'll probably close for the day, for the session. So the first question is from Kumara in Sri Lanka. So thank you, Kumara, for your question. I have been listening to your online video broadcast on YouTube every day. Please explain the following words you are using. Number 1, God. Number 2, heaven. Number 3, oneness. Now that is a pretty good question, whichever way you look at it. And very, very worth my answering at this stage on our journey together. What do I mean by God? Okay, I love this question actually. Let me say that I do not believe in God. I have absolutely no belief in God or faith in God. And I have no connection to religion. I consider religion as taking us away from God. Some more than others, so don't get all uptight about it if you follow a religion. But this is, when I speak of God, it has nothing to do with religion or believing in God. So what do I mean by God? For me, it's very simple. God is the silent presence at the very heart of all things present. What do you think omnipresence means? For religious believers, it's a very comforting concept, the presence of God in everything, God as omnipresent. But it's just a comforting concept. But as you become more and more present, you start to open up to what I'm speaking of. You start to sense, to feel, even see the living presence of God in all things present, whether it's a chair, a stone, a rock, a mountain, a bird, a dog, an elephant. God is literally in everything as the silent presence in all things present. There's only one place in all existence that God does not exist, and that is the world of the human thinking mind. Because the world of the human thinking mind is a world of illusion, and God is not an illusion. God is real. God is here now, but we are not. We have become absorbed into the dream, the past and future world of the mind, the story. We've disconnected from presence, and in so doing, we've disconnected from God. And what do we do in this separate space that we've taken ourselves into, this world of separation and illusion? What do we do to comfort ourselves in that world? We create God in our image, a God that we can believe in and relate to. We turn God into some loving or punishing father figure in the sky. From my perspective, that has nothing to do with God. God is pure consciousness. God is the silent presence in all things present. God is infinite. God is eternal. God is unknowable with the human thinking mind. And yet you can open into the direct experience of God where you know. You just know. You know instantly. This is God. You can't explain it. You can't define it. You can't describe it, but you know. It's palpable. That's what I mean by God. The silent presence at the very heart of all things present. If that's not enough to motivate you to come out of the dream and at least to some degree bring yourself more present, I don't know what would. The second question, what is heaven? Okay, well, I don't know that needs a great deal of explanation. It's one dimension of our multi-dimensional existence, and it's completely independent of physical form. And we all began in heaven, every last one of us. We began in heaven, a heavenly realm. In the heavenly realm, there is no physical form, so we create whatever environment we choose. And we communicate without words. We travel without moving. It's just amazing, wonderful. We're in a complete state of oneness with God and all that is. Oneness with each other. There's nothing but perfection, oneness, love, and the presence of God in everything. We got to know God in everything as everything, and there was no sense of being separate from God. It was impossible, because God was in everything, including you. That's the heavenly realm. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details here, but we humans, in our infinite wisdom, or otherwise, embarked upon a journey. From oneness, that's the other thing I should say about heaven, it's a state of oneness. There's no duality, it's just one. Everything is one. Oneness, one, not two. Love without hate, joy without pain. Life without birth or death, just life, all revealing itself moment to moment. But we humans have been on a very interesting journey, which one time I might explain it all to you, the origins of our existence. the beginnings of the soul's journey, what happened to the soul once it started in its journey, because the moment we entered into duality, we began the soul's journey over many, many lifetimes in a world of duality. And I'm not going to go into that anymore. That's just our journey. But what's really been happening at another level, if we're all willing to relax and become present, you'll realize that, wow, this is the most amazing journey imaginable. It's a journey from heaven to earth, from heaven to heaven on earth, from the formless world of heaven to the physically formed world of heaven on earth. What a blessing, what a joy to be able to walk physically, to be in a body and walk upon heaven. But very few, if any of us, have made it to that. We've gotten caught in the dream. We've disconnected from God, truth, love, oneness, and heaven on earth. We've disconnected, we've gotten more and more absorbed into the dream. And what that means is when you leave the body, you aren't going to heaven, no matter what all the near-death experiences might tell you. You're not going to heaven. You're going to go through a certain period, which is beautiful, and then you're going to go to a whole section for the recycling of the soul and the beginnings of your next incarnation. And that continues over and over and over again until you liberate yourself from the dream and open up into the truth of who you are, the truth of love, the truth of life, the truth of God. Okay, the next one was oneness. What do I mean by oneness? Well, again, it's very difficult to describe, but it's very easy to experience. At the deeper levels of presence, you will know exactly what I mean. You just feel one with everything. You're not separate from anything. And at the very deepest levels of presence, you begin to be absorbed into isness, absorbed into presence, absorbed into oneness. And there's a point in this absorption where you actually disappear. I have disappeared, and all that is left is God. Now that's about the most exalted experience you can have. I have disappeared, and all that is left is God. Silence, presence, peace, love, all of it. So that's what I mean by oneness. You've just become absorbed into isness itself. You can't think about it. Trying to think about it will take you out of it. You can't even think about God or heaven. I mean, you can, but you won't be in God or heaven while you're thinking about it. You come out of the thoughts, settle, relax, and there it is. Maybe during these episodes, I might do the God meditation, which would be to introduce all of you directly to God. But that won't be a part of today's episode. So Kamara, I hope I've answered your question to your satisfaction, and I'll go to the next question, the final question, which is from Mary in Dublin. Hello, Leonard. It is a blessing to hear your teachings. Many thanks. May I ask, please, what does a conditioned mind mean, and is being present a feeling? Okay, a conditioned mind is so simple. It just means your mind is being programmed with things that don't arise naturally and spontaneously within you. All the limiting beliefs are part of the conditioning of the mind. These limiting beliefs, I'm not good enough, I'm not loved, I'm not worthy, etc. I don't fit in, I don't belong. These limiting beliefs begin very, very early in infancy. They begin as an impression that you pick up. You don't. It's not a mental thing. It's not you're not using your mind anyway. They're impressions that form within you. You pick up on these impressions, and these impressions slowly begin to form into a limiting belief that then gets programmed into the mind. And once it's in the mind, programmed there, then that's going to affect every aspect of your life for the rest of your life until you die or until you free yourself from that particular limiting belief. So that's a part of the conditioned mind. But what do you think religion is other than conditioned mind? Your mind is being filled with other people's concepts, theories, and beliefs. That's a conditioned mind. the fact that you're American or Irish or Australian, all part of your conditioning. You're conditioned into that. You're not actually Irish, Australian, American, or anything. You're transcendent of all that. You're a human being, and you exist even in the present moment. Even whilst you're in physical form, you are also transcendent of your physical form. And I can tell you that transcendent you has no color, no religion, none of it. No creed, nothing to believe in. All of that's part of the conditioned mind. I'll take it a step further. Even believing that you're a woman or a man, in your case, Mary, a woman, is also part of your conditioning, because you are also transcendent of male and female, masculine and feminine. You're transcendent of that idea that you're a woman. Beyond a woman, beyond man, you are an awakened human being. Your mind is silent. No past, no future, no conditioning. Who are you? At these deep levels of presence, with no past to define you, no future to catch you, who are you at these deeper levels of presence? Well, if you were to ask me, if somebody were to ask me, Leonard, who are you? My honest reply would be, I don't know who I am. I just am. If I want to know who I am, I have to go back into my mind and be defined by all my past experiences, all my limiting beliefs, all my judgments, all my repressed feelings, and all the ways I lose myself in others. That gives me a fairly good sense of who I am, which is what has happened to all of us living within the dream, but it's not the truth of who you are. So come back to the question, who am I? Well, I don't know who I am. I just am. I could elaborate on that. I could say, I am the one looking out through these eyes. Who is looking out through these eyes? I am. I am the one hearing through these ears. Who is hearing through these ears in this moment? It's always this moment. I am. Who is here now? Who is present? I am. Who is I am? I am. End of story, end of journey. I am that. I am. Thou art that. Each one of you watching this live stream, or this replay, if that's what it is, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, you are all, every one of you without exception, are visitors from heaven. And your ultimate destiny is to awaken into heaven on earth, and then when you leave the body, be restored to heaven. But something happened in the meantime. We all got lost. The soul got lost in this long, long dream playing itself out within duality, filled with judgment, conflict, limiting beliefs, desires, fears, all of it. We've all got lost in this dream, and now we're basically restricted to or limited to the soul level, repeating lifetime after lifetime exactly the same story, exactly the same dream that we're lost in, different faces, different names, different places, but the same story. Your mother might have a different name and a different face, but it's going to be the same mother, same father, very similar, same patterns, same programs, same beliefs, so that you give yourself the best opportunity to recreate the story that you're lost in, and thereby give yourself the best opportunity to free yourself from that story. That's what awakening is all about. Okay, so I think that's a lot to share with you. You might want to listen to this a few times and really let it sink in. I don't mean remember it or understand it, but when I speak, when I'm teaching and when I speak, I'm always speaking to the awakened you. I'm never speaking to your mind that needs to understand or to practice what I'm saying. I'm speaking to the you that's already awake, because I know the truth exists within you fully, but it's only available to you as you become present. From within the mind, we have no access to the level of truth that I'm speaking of. We have to come out of the past and future and settle beautifully, deeply, fundamentally into the present moment. Okay, so a few little reminders, if I may. If you're new to this channel, or if you haven't already subscribed, I would ask you to subscribe for two reasons. Number one, it helps us. It helps me to spread the teaching. After all, the awakening is not about me. It's about everybody who's ready. So subscribe and hit the like button, the notification button, or the bell. And if you'd like to share your comments, I'd love to read your comments. So even before we leave, please share your comments. I can see there's a whole bunch of them here. And I appreciate your comments. All right, so hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to sharing with you in our next episode together on our journey of awakening together, being present with Leonard. Blessings and love to each and every one of you.